I think the reaction in the tech-free home I see as a reaction to the processor-based, super proprietary, big rack of stuff that nobody but, your highest paid tech, can work on. That's what the homeowners are rejecting. And candidly, I don't blame them.
That button launches all of our nuclear missiles.
Well, then which button gets me a latte?
That would be the other one, sir.
What idiot designed this thing?
You did, sir.
Fair enough.
On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk Samsung's rolling robots, tech-free homes, and smart toilets. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek. This is ResiWeek, episode 479. It all works together. Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv. And this week, I'm pleased to be joined by my good friend, Mr. Henry Clifford. He's the president of LimeWire and a co-founder of Parasol. How you doing, my friend?
Pretty good, Matt. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. I just got back from vacation, so I'm drowning in a sea of emails that I didn't respond to all week long. But other than that, I'm doing great. All the better just for hanging out with you today. We had another guest that had to bail out. And so, yeah, you get the two of us. It's going to be a blast. All right, we are going to kick today off with a story that comes to us from CE Pro. Samsung's rolling robot Bali will feature Google's Gemini. It added Gemini to the smart home robot and is rolling out updates across the board to its smart things platform. If you haven't seen it, go take a look at the article. You can see the little robot. They announced this thing back in, I think, 2020 as a concept. Somehow it's gained momentum and is apparently a real product coming to us now. Go read through the article. It covers, again, the Bali AI integrations with Samsung and Google, as well as there's some updates on smart things from health integration, improved automation, intercom broadcasting, and streamlined onboarding. Henry, we're going to start with you because you're the only one here. In reference to this robot thing, who wants this? Who is asking for this? Who's going to buy it?
I guess I've got 99 problems and a rolling robot's not one. However, I'm just a guy. I guess at the end of the day, right now in the tech world, they talk about cookie licking, like this idea of sucking the air out of the room with an idea. And so, I mean, Amazon has a sort of Alexa type robot, and you've seen obviously Optimus and some of these other, like this idea of the droid helper, has been in our psyche since A New Hope in 1977. So I think
the Jetsons, man.
Yeah, the Jetsons, and I think there's that, the droid physical component, but I think also there's this other side of the LLM or sort of these large language models like Llama, like Gemini, like Claude or ChatGPT. They have yet, and this is happening right now, they have yet to kind of really marry up with any of our voice assistants. And so whether it's Alexa Plus, which is now being rolled out into homes, or it's Gemini, there's this race now to, I think, have this use case in the home, which I think very soon, I mean, next 60, 90 days, this is going to age very quickly, this conversation. Because I think in the next 60 or 90 days, like a prairie fire, we're going to now start to have generative AI in the home, whether it's through our assistant pucks, like the little hubs or the whatever they are, whether it's Google Home, whether it's whatever they are. And I think Rolly is just a mobile version of that. And I think to Google, that's amazing because, I mean, you talk about contextualizing data. I mean, this is just a marketer's dream. So I think there's going to be some very useful things that happen. But right now, just Rolly, if Rolly makes a kid happy, great. If Rolly helps somebody in a dementia care scenario, great. If it's a companion, great. If my dog can, play around with Rolly, sure. But I mean, that's about where it stops. But where I think the bigger message is that the true LLM voice interactive experience is early edge of here, and this Rolly is just an early example of an application of that.
This is one of those things that for me just falls into something I don't ever want to see. I don't want to interact with it. I don't know if I'm just too old in my thinking, but like we took all of our Alexas out. And that's something that I'm seeing more and more in regards to their smart things, which again is going to play a part in things like Rolly. Do you see that becoming one of the like being able to play in the same room or the same level as Alexa or Google as a platform? Does Rolly help with that?
I think SmartThings, it was one of the first ecosystems that I saw really embracing Matter as a protocol. So I think SmartThings, just because it's been embraced by such a large manufacturer, I think if nothing else, will maybe be remembered as one of the beginnings of truly ubiquitous embedded technology and these endpoints, like the same way you have a Wi-Fi radio and everything. So
Yeah,
I think that will be maybe with the legacy of something like SmartThings, and the fact that it'll be that all these new shiny objects and pieces of space junk that get produced will have embedded, whether it's Bluetooth radios or Wi-Fi or the ability to interact with pretty much any control system. And I think which is rapidly moving to, whether it's your smartphone or whether it's something like Rolly, it's moving less to this idea of a centralized control. It's much more of a distributed kind of thing, contextually following you around and understanding where you are, when you are, who you are, and maybe some other atmospherics that have been programmed in, and then the game now shifts to anticipation, and to the degree that Rolly accomplishes that now, I think Rolly's just it's just a shiny, fun little thing. And I think culturally too, like Matt, you mentioned like the last thing you want to do is interact with it. I think the same thing, but then I also look at to some extent, I look at Japan sometimes or Korea or some of these other countries where you see a lot more tech adoption, and they might have had Rolly. I remember going to high school, and I had buddies from lived in Tokyo who lived in my dorm, and they would show me this stuff that they're like, well, you'll see this in about 10 years.
Yeah.
All right. So I think to some extent you look at leading indicators. I think companionship is probably one of these things that a little R2D2 kind of droid BB1 kind of thing following you around could be interesting.
Yeah. That's true.
Well, can it get me a beer? No. Can it make a reservation for me? Sure. But I think the use case right now for it is just kind of a sizzle use case and an introduction of maybe an LLM as a voice interaction. But beyond that, not too much else. I think where it'll be really useful is down the road when we're potentially leasing humanoid robots, which brings on a whole nother creepy thing. It makes me think of that Megan Fox movie that just came out, which I will never.
Creepy as heck.
Never mind it. No more. No droids in the house.
No. I view it almost as trying to get us climatized and view these things as normal. Right. I think it's the tip of the iceberg, which is interesting. We'll see where it goes. All right, let's change topics for a second and go in the complete opposite direction. This, interestingly enough, comes from the Hollywood Reporter. And you might say, why are we looking at an article from the Hollywood Reporter? And they do a whole section on real estate, which is where this comes into play. Why the ultra-rich are unplugging from smart homes. With Wi-Fi enabled voice-activated appliances, too clever by half-analog app-free abodes are suddenly tempting A-list LA buyers. Welcome to the new dumb house. Go read through the article. It is a fascinating look into kind of the response, and I'm going to call it a cycle of kind of needs and wants for affluent homeowners, right? It goes in waves, and you can look at essentially real estate listings, and you can see the design aesthetic of an era, right? As you look through things. If you look from the tech standpoint, I think we're kind of in a bit of that zone as well. Go read through it. It tells a couple of stories, including one where a interior designer was hired to renovate a house and remove an automation system that was doing lighting control because the clients could not get it to function the way they wanted it. And they essentially spent over $100,000 to rewire part of the house and install traditional Decora paddle switches, which should make, as integrators, our hearts kind of drop a little bit. But I see their point. So go read through the article. It is, as I said, it's a fascinating read. Henry, when you see this, is this a result of tech overload, or is this a result of overcomplication of the tech that's in these homes?
I've never been a fan of the idea that some of our manufacturers have around, it's almost like the Dharma initiative from Lost, where they want you to use the Dharma initiative remote control and the Dharma initiative touchscreen, and it all works together. And I've never really bought into that. Like, I've always really liked this idea that subsystems, like whole home audio systems, should stand on its own, or a lighting control system should stand on its own. It should all stand on its own. If the failure of some centralized hub should not bring down any part of the home. I think some of these homes, and you and I have both been in them, Matt, where it's just over designed. There's touch screens in the walls, and nobody knows how the hell anything works, and that's the complaint. And usually when I'm there, it's usually somebody complaining. Well, we paid all this money and it doesn't work, and we're frustrated. And starting about 10 years ago, I started seeing this backlash thing where somebody would say, well, I've got the big fancy control system in my other house in Chicago, and I don't want that here. Well, they ended up spending, in some cases, they've spent, 7 figures to put together a quote unquote tech free, or whatever the label was in the home. Now, they don't have the control system, but they still have, and I think
all the things.
It's a bit of a misnomer. Like, if the technology gets out of the way, because you mentioned it too before we got on the air, which was, you pull all the tech out of your house except the lighting control. Like, nobody who's ever had lighting control, I'm sorry, that's worked well, would ever remove that from home. No. Like, I think what they're really taking back is agency. Like, nobody likes feeling helpless. Nobody likes feeling frustrated. Nobody likes getting yelled at by their significant other, or having their friends go, yeah, nice system, man. You paid all this money and nothing worked. So that's what I see people taking back. But what takes its place is easy and simple, right? So we've definitely seen this same backlash. I personally think that it's a function of bad design and bad needs assessment. And so if you're trying to sell something to someone, that's the kind of systems that get put in. But if you're really listening to a customer about their needs, then you're going to design them a simple system. But I think, at the end of the day, you're seeing more and more easy lighting control and Wi-Fi and, less TVs in the home. I mean, it's so funny you mentioned that. Like, I look at my children, I don't know about yours, but I mean, when we gather around as a family, we'll watch the bigger screen, but a lot of them they're just on their screen. So, having a great network in the home, having great lighting control, and great lighting for that matter, a way to listen to music easily. And that means being able to sling it from your phone when you want to without maybe even having to open up another app. Those are the things that are table stakes right now. And if we can't deliver that as an industry, shame on us. We can. We certainly do it every day. But I think the reaction in the tech-free home I see as a reaction to the processor-based, super proprietary, big rack of stuff that nobody but your highest paid tech, can work on. That's what the homeowners are rejecting. And candidly, I don't blame them.
So let me ask you this, because I've made a statement multiple times on this show, but going back like pre-COVID, that we're, again, talking about my own company, we're selling less racks. We're not pushing racks. We are on board with this simplified control. And I got and continue to get lambasted by people in the industry over the fact that we'll sell lighting control for a whole house and not put a touchscreen in. And you get this pushback of, well, you're not doing it right. You're leaving money on the table. You're not giving them options. And I come back to, I heard this story literally yesterday. Had a friend of mine, they're older, or older than both of us. They were at a car dealership, got in one of the new electric Cadillacs, didn't know if he turned it on. He just wanted to sit in it. So the owner of the dealership gave him the keys as he was getting some stuff done on his Caddy, went and sat in this brand new Escalade, all electric. He's like, I don't know if it's on. Got out, went back to the owner after giving the keys back to somebody and said, just so you know, I don't know if I shut it off because I don't know if I turned it on. I don't know what happened. And I listened to him tell me the story, and I'm like, that's the exact issue of why we've gone away from all the things that 10 years ago we used to hang our hat on as integrators. Is it, are clients just looking for things to function and not care about the system?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, at the end of the day, you think about it, it's a pretty simple ask that our poor customers want. They just want the stuff to work, right? And meanwhile, a lot of us aren't necessarily schooled in user experience or human interface design. Like to some extent, we may just be a function of the last class we took at the local distributor, or by a vendor. And I mean, at the end of the day, I understand if you're a vendor, you're kind of self-interested. So if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So it takes a little bit of kind of a philosophical construct almost. Like, we get to choose who we get to be as service providers in our space, right? And so there is a design construct that says, a maxim that says, don't make me think. And so just the very act of installing a touchscreen somewhere, you are instantly putting that person in the place of having to think. It is not a usual thing. If you walk over to a wall and there's a light switch, fair game. You can do a light switch. Top on, bottom off, dimming. People understand that stuff. People understand the smartphone. You want to give them something to do with their smartphone? That's to some extent fair game as well. They understand a clicker. They understand a remote. They understand voice. So I think the next wave of exploration, if we want to have fun, is leveraging and taking advantage of some of these voice assistants. I understand there's some privacy concerns around that, but being able to naturally describe what you're looking for in a natural way, like the way we talk to ChatGPT now, that is, in my mind, no doubt the way that the human experience is going to happen in the home. And as I said, like, when you see things that are matter enabled, etc., and you go, well, who's going to act as a conductor for all this stuff? I mean, we are a hop, skip, and a jump from, disintermediation big time for a lot of the what I'd call legacy control stuff. And it had a good run, right? We had a 15, 20-year run with it. And that's okay. We got to move on. But if we're not, as an industry, embracing that and leading with a services first approach, and not thinking in terms of like needs assessment for the customer, and overcomplicating things, like we're dead.
I met with one of my reps at CEDIA, not last year, the year before. And they rep a bunch of different lines and a couple of different things. One of which was the automation platform we sell, typically. And we're talking a little bit, and he's like, we looked at your numbers. You're not selling a lot of remotes. I said, nope, we're not. He's like, you should be concerned with that. I'm like, no. You should be concerned with that. And he looked at me dumbfounded and called over one of the manufacturer reps and said, listen to what he just said. And the manufacturer got a little defensive, which I understand, right? And I said, what you seemingly don't understand, maybe you're working on it, you just haven't told us. I get it, but I don't know. But I have this remote, not this one, but I have a remote like this that I get from my cable co, that I can push a button and I can talk into it. And it does anything and finds most anything. Your remotes don't do that. Yes, they're fancy. Yes, they have screens in them. Yes, they do a whole lot of other things. But my clients want to pick up the remote and say, watch Netflix, and have Netflix appear on the screen. Yours doesn't do that. Apple's does. The cable co's does. Yours doesn't. You get me one that does that, and we'll try and sell it. And they looked at me with this dumbfounded expression of like, but it's so awesome and it does so many things, which it did and it does. And I have them in my house. But I walked away from it going, there's an evolution happening that I don't know if everyone's paying attention to. And it reminded me again of the story that I kicked this off with of, we don't sell racks. And I remember the manufacturer that we buy racks from got very offended when I told him that, we're not buying racks anymore because we don't need them. For most of our projects, it doesn't warrant it. And they don't want to spend the money. And when I look at this and listen to what you're saying about, essentially human-centric design, which is the overarching principle that we're talking about here, I'm very intrigued with where the industry takes it. Because there's some players that are working very hard at it, and there's some that don't seem to be embracing it. And I think if they pay attention to this, they might a little bit more. We'll hit our last story of the day. This comes to us from Residential Systems and a good friend of the show, Mrs. Katie McGregor Bennett, outsmarted by a smart toilet. A friend of hers had a visit to a high-end tech integration showroom to see all the latest things. Something that they were showing in that showroom was a automated toilet in a smart kind of appointed bathroom. And her friend couldn't figure out really how to use any of it. So Katie, being the awesome person Katie is, went to go see it herself and try it herself. She figured out how to do a bunch of things on this fancy, I think I know what brand this is, but it's not mentioned, so I'm not going to mention it either, on this toilet, but couldn't figure out how to flush it. Long story short, has all the buttons, but you still flush the toilet manually, like a regular toilet. Katie focuses in the article on the importance of intuitive design and, again, working on user-centric design. When you read through this, Henry, when you see it, again, this kind of flows through and puts a nice bow on everything we've talked about today. As an industry, are we spending enough time understanding user-centric design and how to implement it in our companies and in our projects?
We were just talking about this earlier with our commercial side. I feel like we at Livewire have a really strong sense of self, like who we are on the residential side. Like I just gave you my whole subsystem ethos, and like, and I, so I can stand, I can stand tall in the face of a vendor trying to push me on the Dharma initiative kind of track because it conflicts directly with that 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 philosophy. On the commercial side, it was so interesting. This is an example of simplicity of user experience design. We're sitting there in a conference room, and we typically will use in our team room. We have a computer. I mean, it's an integrated huge screen. It's this 85-inch thing, right? It's a touch screen.
Yep.
It's a smart board. Has an embedded PC in it. And for the most part, for meetings, we're just sitting there at the table. You got a keyboard and a mouse, and we'll just launch the meeting. If you want to share something, you just join the meeting and share. Now, there are some dongle-based media sharing and solutions, etc. Now, here I am. Like, again, I have a company that does this for a living. I could get this stuff probably at a steep discount or maybe even for free if I wanted. So it's fair to say that I can use any wireless collaboration or solution that I want.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what we sit there and do is we sit there with a keyboard and a mouse, and that's how we handle our meetings, and it works just fine. And it's simple. And so I had this conversation earlier today with one of my guys. I'm like, who are we philosophically? Like we're telling people to use these wireless media sharing solutions, yet we're sitting here just using a computer. Like, we're extolling the virtues of all these different technologies, yet we in our own facility, we're doing X, Y, or Z. So I said, not that we shouldn't use these collaboration solutions or not, but I said, we need to have a conversation about our personality as an organization in the commercial space, because it's changed now and it keeps changing, and that's okay. But I think that conversation that I challenged our team to have, I wonder to what degree there's intentionality around in the CI business. Because most of us we're moving around, we're moving fast in the whirlwind, and we're just reacting. So I'm not sure I answered the question, but to me that was just like a perfect analogy to what you just described.
It reminds me of two things. One, in our commercial side, same thing. We sell the same stuff as everybody else does, and we sold a bunch of the wireless sharing stuff to a tech marketing firm in town a couple of years ago, and they had 10, 11 boardrooms all outfitted with it, and we started looking at the data of how often they're using the rooms and how often they're using the tech, and found out that two of the executive level guys were going into a breakout room that just had a display that they could AirPlay to essentially, and would either AirPlay or print stuff out on a plotter because they just wanted to gather around it with different color Sharpies and collaborate on the actual paper. And then I flip that to one of the other companies I have is kind of a millwork construction company. So we do a lot of floor plans and blueprints and stuff like that. And we've got all the stuff. My office we've got the huge displays. We've got the iPads. We've got the virtual reality stuff so people can look at it and walk through the space. And you know what we do almost every time is we print on 11 by 14 paper, and we get some colored papers, and we get stickers, the little dot stickers. And we sit down with the client at a table and just do, because it's fast, it's simple, it's not intimidating. And it allows them to understand the process rather than be awed by the tech and then not do anything and not participate. It's interesting how we're, again, riding that wave in and out of tech for the sake of tech.
I almost feel like too, Matt, that a certain level of antagonism or tension, I think shows vulnerability, and it shows openness with a prospect or with a customer, and it's a differentiator. Like we talked about this today. I said maybe our role in the space, maybe like it is in residential, is we're kind of the anti-Dharma initiative folks in residential. Why wouldn't we just be that way? Like you walk into enough commercial jobs and there's certain systems that pop out at you and you go, well, we obviously have to be a dealer for these guys. Otherwise, we're not going to play in their space. But now I've been in enough of those rooms, again, with non-intuitive user experiences on the wall, and I have not had a single conversation with anyone that went like this. Oh, we've got this and we love it and it works.
We use it all the time.
We use it all the time. Never.
Yeah,
and
it's interesting.
There's always a guy who has to come in. It's always a guy too.
Yep.
Who has to come in and like screw around with the thing to get it to work.
Hold on, I almost got it. Give me a second. Yeah.
And this is 2025. And so I wonder, but if we position ourselves as the anti-Dharma initiative in commercial, I think there's plenty of business, there's plenty of opportunity, because by the way, these folks still don't want to do it themselves. They still want a single ringable neck. They still want service when nothing works. Yeah. So I'm not trying to be negative about our industry at all, but I guess I am trying to share that I feel like a pivot is in order from a hardware-centric box mover maybe mentality or blind fealty towards Dharma initiative-esque type approaches to go, hey, these guys, they're kind of mad, and these are our customers. And then we have like one of the lowest NPS averages of any industry out there. I mean, we're like down there with like the phone company and the cable company. They hate us. So anything we can do to improve that would be a good move.
All right, we will leave it there. Thank you for joining us. Henry, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Livewire or Paracel, where can they do that?
I'm on the interwebs at Get Livewire. It's the easiest way to reach me, and thanks again for having me.
No problem. Thank you for being here. As for myself, if you'd like to connect with me or send me all the hate mail, don't send it to Henry, send it to me. You can find me at Matt D. Scott on most of the socials, but more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek,
the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.